evening, everyone. Hope you've all been keeping well. Um, this new setup of Facebook have put in place is a little bit weird because you don't really know that you've started when you've started, but it says you're starting, but sometimes you've started. So if there's a delay at the start, it's purely down to Facebook and how they start up things by telling you one thing, but actually starting something else. So I hope you've all had a good week. It's been a decent week here, nice and busy, working away on the books, trying to get them ready to launch come December, working on the NFTs, getting them ready for launch in November. So get over to get a crypto wallet and the Discord group to get signed up, and you can own one of the Face Painted Kids NFTs, where we're going to give 51% of profits to charity, and we are going to run a virtual conference every year for 3 years if we sell out fully to the token holders, where it'll be based on how you can manage your mental health with tons of different ways that we can do it. So that's going to go ahead as well. Good evening, everybody jumping in. Hope you've been keeping well. Yes, it was an amazing result last night, Maria, for Liverpool. I was very happy with the score. So what else has been happening? Was it the weekend just gone that we didn't run our parenting after separation course. That was the previous week. I was at a wedding. That's what I was doing last weekend. I was at a wedding last weekend, and it was very nice because it felt normal and natural for the first time in a long time. So that was nice. Vivi, good to see you. I don't have tons of information to give you. If you have any questions on crypto wallets and NFTs and what the hell they are, go over to Twitter, search up Face Painted Kids. You will find our Face Painted Kids Twitter, and then follow the link to Discord, and we will have tons of little tutorials and posts that can help you to get set up. So yeah, that's enough plugging of stuff. I don't think anything else to tell you about coming up. Oh yeah, actually, we're doing our Empowering Learning program this weekend, and the Empowering Learning program is a program where we teach children who are dyslexic how to use their visual memory to learn how to spell. And it is my favorite program to run, because we have young people walking in the door feeling this low down and just feeling like they can't spell and that they're stupid, and then they leave 4 hours later knowing they can spell, bouncing, because all of a sudden I am not stupid. It is the most amazing program to run. So that is running this weekend in Drogheda. Then in 2 weeks after that, we are running it in Dundalk, and that's all being paid for by the Loud Leader Partnership. So if you have a child who is in school in Drogheda or Dundalk, contact me or Jennifer Lally in Loud Leader Partnership, and we can see about getting you on if there's any spaces. I think the Dundalk one is pretty much full, but you can get onto a waiting list, and we will be running it again in the new year. So if you get onto the list, if you're based in Drogheda or Dundalk, if you can get onto the list, so you'll get preferential position for the next one in the new year. If you have a child who has dyslexia or struggles with their spelling, I also run it one-to-one with people, so you could give me a shout, and if you're not based in Drogheda, I can still work with you and your child to teach you the technique. And it, like I said, it is the best program to run, because seeing the change in people, and it works like that. The very first time I saw it, there was a young lad I was working with. He was 14, and he had missed most of the first couple of years of secondary school, and he really struggled to spell 4-letter words, 5-letter words. And within an hour, he had spelled psychologically forwards and backwards on the first go. It's one of those things that it's hard to believe. You need to see it to believe it. And Jennifer's going to see it for the first time this weekend, which is really exciting. So if you've got a child who's struggling with spelling or has dyslexia, give me a shout, and we will organise a session or two to teach them a new way to spell that actually works for them. Because people who are dyslexic have very strong visual memories. Auditory, which is how a lot of schools teach, doesn't actually work for them. So you might as well be getting me to speak Chinese because it just doesn't work. So it's a really, really simple tool, works really effectively. And all you have to do is practice for 5 minutes a day for 30 days, and they should have it. My own daughter had dyslexia. We showed her, we worked with her for 30 days, and she can spell so much better. Doesn't mean that she gets every single spelling right, but she can spell way better, and she has a technique that she uses still. This is 7 years later. She still uses it in secondary school, so it's worth it. Hi Jennifer, good morning Amanda, how are you? All the US people waking up, it's good to see you all. Okay, we've got 2 questions as per usual today. First one is in. Alan, I am a new mum. My daughter is 5 months old. I found becoming a new mum quite hard. I was so looking forward to it, but since my little one arrived, I've just been feeling completely overwhelmed. My partner tries his best to support me, but nothing is lifting it. I've spoken to friends and other new mums online, and they all say not to worry, it will pass, but it's been 5 months now, and I still don't feel any better. I question everything I'm doing and worry that I'm not good enough for my daughter. Have you any words of wisdom on how I can change how I feel and just get into loving life again like I did before? So I suppose any of you mums out there tuning in, you may have experienced something similar. It may have been a shorter time frame, it may have been a longer time frame, but a lot of new mums experience that sense of being completely overwhelmed. And dads too, but mums more so, because mums have gone through the actual physical process of giving birth, and there is, I suppose, and I don't feel necessarily qualified to talk about this being a man or a dad, but from speaking to women and my own research, it sometimes can feel like it's a snow globe, and you just get shaken up and down, and everything starts flying all over the place, and it takes quite a while for things to settle back down, and your body has gone through a trauma essentially, and you've got a little baby, but it can be very, very challenging to regulate yourself because everything has been shaken up, and it's just so much more difficult to try and it's hard to force the things to settle down. So with a snow globe, you cannot force stuff to settle. It needs to take its own time to settle. And having a child, from what I've been told, is it can be similar. And I suppose having those baby blues, having postnatal depression, having just the challenges of getting into routine, especially on your first child, because there's no experience like it. Nobody can accurately describe to you and make you understand the tiredness and that sense of overwhelming until you actually have a child. And this is not looking at having a child as a negative thing. It's absolutely positive. It's wonderful. But it is hard, and it is challenging, and it is upsetting. And you do question yourself because you don't know what you're doing. Because you can read all the books in the world. I did it. We've read loads of books. And I got this little baby home, and I was like, how do I keep this thing alive? And so it's not unusual for parents to really kind of feel like, am I completely messing this child up? And that can stay for quite a while. It can stay up until they're 50. Who knows? I don't know. I haven't got a 50-year-old, but I know my grandmother, when she was alive, used to say to my dad, "You'll always be my child. So go and put a jumper on." And he's like, I'm in my 50s, mum. And she's like, "Doesn't matter. Go and put a jumper on. It's too cold outside." So here we have a new mum. She's struggling. And not only is she a new mum in normal times, she's a new mum in COVID times, which probably has restricted the amount of people that you can be around, be with, get support from. And people saying to you, it's okay, it gets better, doesn't make you feel necessarily any better in the moment. Because people telling us, don't worry, it's grand, doesn't take away that fear. It doesn't take that worry. It doesn't take away that experience that we're going through in that moment. So what it suggests is that you should go and speak to your doctor. And for different people, it can be challenging. None of us want to feel like we are not able or incapable or weak. But we can get help. We don't have to do all of this on our own. And people will say, oh, my mom, she was amazing. She went and she did everything and she never complained once. People did. People complained when, in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. People went actually insane for a short period of time bringing up their children because there wasn't the same understanding of the impact physically and emotionally that having a child has on us. So it doesn't matter what anybody else might say. It doesn't matter what anybody else might think. It doesn't matter if people actually turn around and tell you you're the worst mother in the world, because to hell with them. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is look after yourself. So people would say, well, going online is going to be beneficial and helping. That can be hard too, because people get fatigued, people get tired, and people are, they don't necessarily want to sit online and, listen to people regurgitating stuff. So go to your doctor, sit down and have a open, honest, genuine conversation with your doctor about how you're feeling. And it's not to get your doctor to put you onto antidepressants or anything like that, but your doctor will be able to give you some advice on how you may be able to manage it. So whether that is recommending a counsellor or a therapist or a coach that you can go and speak to, or a specialist, or they may be able to work with you to help you manage things in the here and now. Because yes, things are going to change. You're not going to feel so overwhelmed all the time. But again, that does not change the situation for you right now. How you're feeling is the reality, not how you will feel in the future. So go speak to your doctor and get that support, and go, and if they recommend a counsellor or a therapist, go and see them. You're worth it. Your own mental health, your ability to manage the ups and downs in life are worth it. And there can be a stigma around going to see a counsellor or therapist. We're getting better as a society in accepting it and understanding it and accessing it. But there can still be that feeling of there's something wrong with me. I was actually working with a 15-year-old lad today, and he said, I don't want there to be something wrong with me. I don't want a label of having anxiety or depression or something like that. I said to him, but you don't have to. You don't have to have any label. So it doesn't have to be labelled as postnatal depression. It doesn't ultimately, having something labelled or diagnosed, unless it's severe, if that doesn't help you, the question I'd say is, does it change what you actually want to do? And the reality is probably not. In terms of, if you're going to see a counsellor or a therapist, well, you're doing the best that you can in that moment to try and change how you're feeling. And that's what matters. So if you're concerned about being labelled or anything like that, it doesn't matter what they say or don't say. It's about you finding the supports that you can to help you access the tools to change your mental health and how you're feeling right now. The other couple of things that you can do before that, so I would absolutely 100%, that's the first thing I would recommend. Go and speak to your doctor. I would also look at taking one day at a time. So literally writing down, what are the things I want to get done today? And is there anything pressing? Write those down, and then look at, are there things that are going to trigger me or that are triggering at the moment? So some people might say, well, my mum calls around, or my mother-in-law calls around, or such and such calls around, and I just feel not great afterwards because when they think they're supporting me, they're actually not. Well, then look at those triggers and go, well, what is it that about this that's actually making me not feel good about myself? Um, and it could be simple as looking at your daughter and going, I'm failing her. So write down all the things that are making you feel like you're not good enough, and then challenge them. Is this actually true right now, today? Because maybe the best that you can do on a particular day is literally just keeping your child fed and watered and their nappy changed. And that might be the best you can do in that day. And that's all right. So many people look back at the past, but they're viewing it through the lens of today. So, I wish I hadn't have done this, or I wish I had have done that. But in any given day, we do the best that we can. And you're doing it every single day. You are doing the best that you can. There's a great little technique called the ABC model. It's a really simple tool. Go and download it. You'll get it on, well, email me, I'll send it to you, but you can download it from Google, where you have the A, the activating event, something that is triggering you. Then B, the negative beliefs that you have. So write them down. And then the C, what are the negative consequences of those beliefs? So what happens to you because this is the story that you're telling yourself? And then what you do is you write down the alternative beliefs that you could have about the situation. And then you look at what are the alternative consequences of having those beliefs. And that can help you get a clearer plan of, this is what I need to do to make myself better. So, for example, I look at my daughter and I feel like I am not being a good mother. So the triggering event is looking at your daughter and kind of going, I'm not doing a good enough job. So the negative beliefs are, I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm failing my daughter. Some can be, how am I going to keep her alive? It could be simple as, how am I not going to mess her up? I am the worst mother in the world. These are all the beliefs that you could have. And then the negative consequences of having those beliefs are, you feel awful. You feel sad. You feel terrified. You feel anxious. You feel upset. All these feelings come along. And then what you do is you write down the alternatives. I am doing the best that I can today. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get better tomorrow, but today this is the best that I can. I have kept my daughter alive and fed and nurtured for 5 months, and she's developing as she should. And I'm going to go and get the help that I need. And then the alternative consequences because of those beliefs are, well, maybe you feel a little bit more realistic about the expectations you have of yourself and go, I'm doing a good enough job, so I'm actually feeling a little bit calmer about it. And I'm going to pick up the phone, ring my doctor, make an appointment and go and chat to them. It doesn't work all the time. It takes practice. We do ABCs all the time in our heads. We just don't think of them as ABCs. But drop me an email if you want it. I can send a copy over to Google. You'll get it. But please go contact your doctor, have the conversation and see what supports you can access. And it will be better for you in the long term because you will build up a little toolkit of techniques that you can use to help your mental health. And I hope that is useful to you. You're doing the best that you can right now, and that's all you can do. Josephine, you can't even get out to parenting groups now, which I found very helpful. Absolutely. Louise, hi Alan, it was such hard work keeping on top of my mental health, even after I'd had my third child. I used to go into the weigh-ins with the health visitor every week just so I could go and talk to someone. In the end, they told me I didn't need to keep coming, and I felt incredibly alone all of a sudden. There is so much power in going and speaking to somebody who is there just for you, who isn't necessarily going to give you advice or tell you what to do unless you're looking for it. But by going to a counsellor or a therapist, you get to just talk about you and your situation and how things are for you, and their job is to just listen. And it is so, so powerful. Trust me, I've sat in the seat of a client many, many times, and there was never a situation that I can think of where I came out thinking, I'm actually feeling worse now than I did before I sat into that seat. It is worth taking care of your mental health. We go to the gym, we exercise, we eat well to take care of our physical health. It's okay to put some money into looking after your mental health. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength that you can admit to yourself, I need a little bit of help right now. So if I was sitting with you guys and I needed to move the heavy table, I could try and lift it on my own, but it'd probably be too heavy for me. Sometimes if I ask the right people for help, and that's the important piece, asking the right people, and that's why I think your doctor would be the good first port of call. Or get in touch with me. You know, I'll talk you through this with you, but definitely go and talk to your doctor. Excuse me. Having that space is essential, and you're worth it. So please take care of yourself. Okay, and thanks guys for the comments. It does help, and people learn from others. Okay, my children. I'm not sure if we had a similar question to this recently, but it came in, so I said I'd answer it. My children have been going on at us about getting a dog. We've had gerbils and a cat in the past that I've ended up having to look after. I said that I won't be the one looking after a puppy if we did get one, and they said they'll take on to mind the dog, walk it, and look after feeding and everything. My husband said we shouldn't because we're both too busy to train a puppy, but part of me now thinks that it could be lovely. What do you think we should do? Well, as I always say, what I think you should do actually doesn't matter, okay? Because it's about what you think is the best for you and your family. So here we have kids, and I'm sure there are many, many parents out there who are going, yeah, Alan, we have had this over and over and over and over and over, especially over the last year and a half or so. And there are so many people with new pets, and especially dogs, especially around here anyway. I'm sure it's probably the same all over the place, because when would you get the time to actually go and train a puppy, look after a puppy, take care of them? You wouldn't. So here we have a mum who is being swayed by the kids, which is unsurprising that a mum or dad can be swayed by the kids, because we all do. But what I would suggest is, right, and you don't say what age your children are, right, but I wouldn't be relying on them to train the puppy, take it for walks, clean up the poo, do the feeding, do the grooming. Now, you might be the lucky one or one of the lucky ones who has a child or children who actually follow through on that. But you may not, given that you were the one that looked after the gerbils, you were the one that looked after the cat, and I don't know how much looking after there is of cats, but you know, you probably still had to feed it and stuff like that. So the chances are, if you get a pet, you are probably going to be the one who is training it, who is looking after it, who is feeding it, grooming, whatever, walking. And you might be okay with that. But I would certainly look at, do you have the time? Because looking after a puppy and training a puppy it's so challenging. It takes so much effort. It's almost like having a baby again. It is not easy. It is worth the hard work, but it is not easy, and there can be times where you feel like, I just can't cope. And I know Dogs Trust here in Ireland certainly have put out numerous posts and comments and videos and articles around, please really, really, really consider getting a dog, because a lot of people during the lockdown went and got a dog, and then they surrendered the dog to the likes of Dogs Trust and other animal rescue agencies, because they couldn't cope with it. They didn't have the time, because although they were at home, they were in meetings all day or working all day, so they couldn't actually look after the dog. The dog would chew, the dog would poo, the dog would pee, and they were left cleaning it up. And what happens is, people unfortunately would point the finger at the dog and say, there's something wrong with this dog because they're not doing the things they should be doing. And I would hazard a guess that probably it's not the dog's fault if it's a puppy. Now, if it's a dog who's been through traumatic experiences, well, then then the dog is needs to learn, and those types of dogs should only be going to homes with people who are experienced dog owners who have the time and can put in the work that that specific dog needs. But for those people who point the finger at the puppy, it's not always the puppy's fault. Now, they'll have different personalities and stuff, but it's up to the people to make sure that they train as best they can that dog. So that is probably going to be you, right? Or your husband. And yeah, the first question is, do you have the time to actually do that? Do you have the patience to do that? Do you have the patience to look at the kids looking at you going, why is the dog chewing? And you're going, you wanted the dog and you're not doing anything about it. Or you going and saying, it's time for you to walk the dog, and they're like, oh, I can't, I've so much homework, I've so blah, 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 blah. It's going to fall on you. So if you have the time and the inclination and the patience to look after and take on to train a puppy, go for it. If you don't go for it. It doesn't mean that if you say no now, that it's a never. You may be in a better position in 6 months' time, in 6 years' time, in 60 years' time, who knows? But it doesn't have to be a no forever. It can just be a no for right now because it may not be appropriate. So if you are, there's a lot of people going back to work now. So certainly in Ireland, working from home has changed. So you may have to go back to work out of the office. Your husband may have to go out of the home to back to the office. That all has an impact. So, and if you think about it, the dog, if you were to get a dog, so there'll be a lot of dogs out there who would have come in during COVID and they had people around them the whole time. And people around them the whole time, people around them the whole time. Then the kids started going back to school. So there was less people around them. And you might be going back to work. So they might be spending a lot of time on their own. And that can be very traumatic and difficult for them to experience because they were used to having so many people around, and now, boom, there's not too many of us around this time. So what I'd suggest is that you sit down with your partner, write down like all the pros and cons of having a dog, with the understanding that you guys probably will be the ones looking after everything when it comes to the dog, and you may be okay with that. And then look at, I would suggest that you go to the likes of your local Dogs Trust, or go to some sort of other shelter or dog home, because there will be a lot of dogs who will be surrendered. Now, you may not feel confident in taking on a dog who has been surrendered, but instead of going and spending a fortune on a new dog, you may be the person who can give one of those dogs who's been surrendered a good caring home, support and love, and it could be wonderful. So please go to that first before you go looking for dogs on DoneDeal and stuff like that. It's just something to be aware of. But yeah, remember that you're the one who's probably going to be doing all the work. So sit down, pros and cons list with your partner, and then make a decision for now. Like I said, it doesn't have to be the decision forever, just for now. Maria's saying, I love my dog to bits, but they're hard work. They absolutely are. And you're going to have to walk that dog once or twice a day. And if you're in Ireland, I don't know if you are, but if you're in Ireland, it's going to be wet. So factor that in. Yeah, now it's a good excuse to get exercise, which is good. But yeah, just really think about it. And you can go and speak to the people in the likes of Dogs Trust. We've rehomed a dog from Dogs Trust ourselves, and it was a hell of a lot of work, but it was worth it. We have a lovely rescue dog who's got the craziest, best personality, and we love him to bits. So it is worth it. But go and speak to them, get their advice, tell them your situation, and they might say to you, look, it doesn't sound like this is the best thing for you right now. So they might be able to advise you. So it's worth doing a bit of research before just jumping in and being consumed by those big saucer eyes that you might see looking up to go and take me home. So I hope that works out, but I can't give you the answer. You have to figure out for yourself. All right, guys. Tana, rescue dogs are the best. Yes, they are. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a lovely week, and we will be back very soon. Look after yourselves. Take care.